Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is a DC born but New York based musician and songwriter, releasing albums almost yearly and consistently blending new sounds and genres. Putting him in a box is quite a challenge. Welcome, Cold Brew.
Thank you. Thank you.
I always like to start, the first question I always like to ask is, where did your journey with music all start?
It started because I would cry on stage when I was like a kid. Um, that's it's a funny question. It's yeah, so I hated singing as a kid. One of my earliest memories is I was in like daycare and we would dance like the hokey pokey dance, and I would just be bawling. I would be sobbing because I didn't want to sing the song. I don't know why. I had like a physical, visceral reaction to singing. And that carried on all throughout like elementary school. And like we would do like little concerts in the spring. I would just cry and throw a tantrum so hard they would like wouldn't make me do anything, wouldn't make me sing songs. Then middle school came and I was like, okay, what can I do to make sure I don't have to sing, right? Because you have to take a music class. You have to take a music class in middle school at my school. And my options were instrumental and vocal. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take instrumental. I'm gonna just do percussion, and it's gonna be the easiest shit I've ever done, and it's fine. I'll just go pop, 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 and we'll call it a day. And that was the beginning of the end for me because it sucked me in, and I started playing drums. And there were like I went to such a small school, so musicians were kind of few and far between. So I like by senior year I was like playing a lot of the musicals like in the pit orchestra, and then I started a band in high school, was doing that for a while, like the pop punk band, you know the vibe, I can imagine. That everybody starts, and we did, and then we started doing some recording, and I was like, okay, so this is what an EQ is. I'm not going to learn how to use it for at least another 3 years, but at least I know what it is. And that kind of evolved, and then I recorded our first album really poorly, but I recorded it nonetheless. Um, and yeah, then it was time to apply for school. I was gonna go for like English or something, and my mom was like, "What are you doing? Just like go for music. I know you want to. I'm not gonna be mad at you if you do." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So I did, and then I went to school for music for songwriting. Halfway through, switched to music tech. Uh, and then yeah, here I am. Played a lot, recorded a lot, uh, and that's basically been my journey.
So, at what point did it kind of transform from doing the band thing to then studying it in college? And where was it that you were like, I can just do my own thing? I can just write my own stuff and really just like put it out how I please myself.
Yeah. Well, in my band in high school, the guy that I did that collaborative album with, he was in that band. He was a guitarist, and we were both writing the songs together. And there were just naturally songs I would write that really just didn't fit the band. So I would just be like, okay, hold on to those, whatever. By the time I was 18, I had kind of outgrown that music I'd written when I was like, we started the band when we were like 13 years old, trying to write songs, right? And we went until we graduated high school. And right when I was graduating high school, I like wrote one song, which is the closer on my first album. It's Always Crowded in Ipanema. And it was like very kind of bossa driven, but ambient rock at the same time. And I was like, yeah, there's no way this pop punk band is going to do this song. And we were all going to different schools. So there was already like a knowledge of like, we're going to have fun this last summer and put out this album. And then we're going to like dap each other up and call it a day and pack up the band. So, and at that point, there was no way I was going to stop making music. And going to a new city, I was like, okay, so my options are I can just do this myself because in my 17, 18-year-old hubris, I can do it myself or find a new group of people to work with. And I was like, I'll just do it myself. Uh, and it started out in a selfish way, but then it became like I will happily play with other people and help people out writing and like drum for them, play guitar. But this is like my kind of like diary, you know?
No, absolutely. And that's what it kind of stems from for, I feel like, a lot of artists, because it's like you're the one writing it, like especially if you're like not like the band thing is a different thing because it's like there's more than just you going on. But like the artist thing, for the most part, it's like it's a solo thing. Like you're writing your own stuff in the sense of like it's your own experience and whatnot. So it really is sort of that diary type of vibe.
Yeah. And that's kind of been the hardest part like recently of like, at the beginning I was like, yeah, I'm alone in this. I get to do whatever I want. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm alone in this. I get to do whatever I want. You know what I mean? So it's like the concept is the same, but the perspective has definitely shifted as I've done this more and more. So yeah, like there was a period after I finished the last album where I was like, I can't go back into my room by myself and do
Hmm.
this all over again. So it's been work trying to get myself back to being able to do that. Um, and I've got friends who I went to school with, one in particular who like has known me so long, he like really gets what I'm doing now. So he's almost served as like I hate this term for music, but like executive producer function now, which basically means I show him something, and if it sucks, he tells me, and he's like, well, why did you not duck the mids out of this bass more? And I'm like, you're so right, bro. So it's been good just to have somebody else to bounce off of, because that was missing for a long time, and whether or not that affected the actual recorded product I was making, it doesn't matter because by the end I was like, I can't do this shit anymore.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's scary, kind of being by yourself and making music because the only person you have. It's scary on one side because it's like, okay, the only person I have to impress is me, but like, what if I'm so close to it I don't see the flaws in it?
Mm.
Uh, and then also it's like, oh my God, I have to sing about being sad again by myself in this room, and it's like 2 a.m. Like Jesus Christ.
It's interesting that you say like, what if you don't see the flaws in it? Because I feel like most people take on the perspective of the opposite, where it's like they are more critical of their own work than anyone else is, music knowledge or not. Like in the sense of like you are your own worst enemy when it comes to pouring your heart onto a page and doing that, because it's like a lot of people take that perfectionist mindset and are just like hold on to something for so long because it's not quite ready yet, when really all you're going to do is make a few minor tweaks. So just put it out already.
Yeah, yeah. And as you notice, clearly I have not been the quality over quantity person throughout my so much shit out. And that's I try to explain this to some of my friends who also make music, where it's like, music, you get like a very physical, neurological reaction to listening to it, right?
Hmm.
Just on a scientific level. And I see it as any music that I make, I want to make it. Since I'm making it, it is going to be scientifically hardwired for me to like it the most. So like, I will do something that in that moment I'm like, yeah, 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 let's go. And then with distance and with another perspective, I think a lot of people when they make music can get caught up in the fact of like doing it for other people and like what is going to make other people enjoy it. I'm like a little too in the opposite direction. And sometimes I need a little bit of reining in. Not because, you know, it's we all like to talk about like untethered absolute creativity and just going all in, but sometimes you need the limitations to do the best that you can, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have the freedom, but at the same time, guidelines don't hurt.
Absolutely. And if you want to break them, break them. Who's going to fucking stop you? You can just do it. But like the the tried and true like mantra, which is so played out and so boring to say, but it really is the truth, is like you have to learn the rules before you break them.
Hmm.
And that's what I really really learned in like songwriting classes. And I've heard some amazing songwriters who don't give a fuck, who just like wrote it all down and just went for it, but I'm not that. I can't do that. And I like what I have tried to do is learn my limitations and learn my biases. And the best way to do that recently has been seeking outside opinion mostly. because if I just kept it all in house, who knows what I would do.
Yeah, there's two sides to every coin on every level, and that's the tricky part. Is there is no rule or guideline in the sense of like what you should do, what you shouldn't do, which is nice. But then when it comes time to like you want some clue and you don't know what you don't know, it's not the most helpful thing in the world.
Yeah, because it's awesome when things are going great. Just boundless creativity is awesome when you're on a roll. But what happens when you get stuck? And
Hmm.
that is why, like, I I'm so thankful for my like private songwriting classes that I took in school. Like, worked with two amazing songwriters, and if I really see songwriting classes as like, okay, cool, but what happens when you're not getting it immediately? When it's not just flowing out of your fingers like, oh, so many songwriters have decreed their best songs have done in 5 minutes. What are you
Hmm.
gonna do when you're in that position? How do you finish it out so you can write the best song possible in that moment? This is what you can do. These are the tools you can use. Um, and that's great. And I've been able to use that as much as I can. And, you know, me kind of taking a different approach to new music and how I make it and how I like kind of like check it with other people is just me trying out different tools, and seeing what works now because things are going to change.
Yeah, that's inevitable. Change is inevitable.
Mhm.
What most often inspires your writing?
Oh, I've never thought about that actually, believe it or not. I've heard so much music. I've never thought about what inspires it the most. Um, for a while, it was, at least as part of cold brew, it was leaving home a lot and the emotions that stirred up. Then after I kind of felt like I had exhausted that pipe, it was like I want to be a writer. I want to create stories and convey emotions that might not even apply to me. And then by the next album, I was like, fuck that. I have feelings. Here they are. Um, I think like at the end of the day, I can make a bunch of music that will explain how I'm feeling, but my real inspiration is like when I hear a piece of music that like I'm much more of a music than like a lyric guy. Although I do love a good lyric because I've been trained to. Music to me, like the neurological response you get from listening to music that just appeals to your brain, like the ratios between the notes, whatever the fuck it may be, that's what I care about. And when I hear a piece of music that does that to me, that's usually what inspires me to try to be like, okay, but like, cool, what if I did that but this way? So yeah.
I excuse me. It's ultimately like one of those things. My goodness. Um,
It was just too good of an answer. You
yes, it's got me all choked up.
uh,
Um, but the thing is it's like you can't. Oh my! Hold on a second. I don't know what happened. Holy crap! I think I'm good now.
okay.
Um, it's one of those things where it's like you can't create without also consuming. If
Mhm.
you're just like creating without like you can't create music without listening to music.
Yeah, and you know what? That actually reminds me of I don't know how familiar you are with video games, but there is a game series called Shenmue, and
Okay.
it's a series that started in the 90s on like Sega Genesis or something. And the director of the game, like the guy who makes these games, famously does not play video games. And the first two games, because of that, were so out of left field for the time and really interesting and really kind of captured people's attention. Then he didn't make a game for 19 years in that series. And in those 19 years, did not play a single video game. And shit has changed a lot in those 19 years. Then he comes back and puts out Shenmue 3, and it shows that he's not played a video game. You know what I mean? And I think if you were to just hole yourself up and you were like, yeah, I'm in love with these 4 artists. I'm gonna just listen to those forever and then stop listening to music for 20 years and then come back. You're not gonna make something that's gonna appeal to people, which is fine. But I don't even think you're gonna make that good of a song. You know, you don't know the tools to use that are available to you now.
It's going to sound like your music hasn't evolved at all. It's going to sound like you're doing the same thing you were doing set amount of
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, or even just so disconnected from reality. Like back to Shenmue, those mechanics are so weird in that last game because he doesn't know how controllers work now, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and if you just like close yourself off to new music that's being made locally in your scene and also like stuff that's on the fucking radio, it's most of it is made masterfully, and there's so much to be gained from like listening to that and studying that and seeing what they do. And like I think from a producer perspective, more people need to listen to country music. And that's my hot take of the podcast. And I
Wow.
don't really like country music that much. But I think anybody who's like, I like everything except country, I'm like, shut up. Because do you eat McDonald's? Yes, then you should listen to country. That's my opinion. It is the perfect product. Everything from the beginning to the end is masterfully put together. The songwriting is tight. It might be like pretty lame or whatever, but it's like perfectly written. There are no mistakes in the songwriting, if that makes any sense. It is perfectly mixed and engineered in the most expensive studios in Nashville, and it is performed by pretty good singers. And all the like the marketing and the production of it is all top notch. You know, I don't know how I got on this. Sorry. But that's my hot take of the podcast is that more people should pay attention to country music to learn things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
I told you made a mistake letting me on here.
I I think this is like the most um speechless I've been in 30 some episodes.
I know because you've probably heard my music, so you're
Yeah.
like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
that's what I'm saying. Like,
doesn't quite align.
no, and people don't have to like the music, and people don't have to don't have to make country after listening
Hmm.
to country. But there are the point I think I'm trying to make is there are fundamentals in every genre of music that equate to like good pop songwriting. And no matter the genre, you should be able to find something that you can learn from it. You know, whether it's like hard style EDM, whether it's thrash metal, whether it's the weirdest shit you've ever heard, or whether it's country, you know.
Interesting. I mean, I'm a summertime country fan. Like I'm a casual country
Yeah.
listener in the sense that I'll throw on like hot country or something when it's like 75 degrees and I can drive with the windows down. But that's I'll have to keep that one right up here and
I mean,
just think
listen,
about it.
I don't listen. I don't listen to country. Do as I say, not as I do. But I'm just saying, I think more people should. I wish I took my own advice
Oh my
sometimes.
God. How can I don't get like it. That's where you lose me and lose some credibility on there is you're not riding your own wave on that one.
No, I'm not strong enough to. Because I don't know if I can put myself through a red solo cup. I fill you up, proceed to party. But I think other people should. I'm just not strong enough to.
Okay. If you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would you call it?
Like,
Like
like
a
what would I
category of
call?
one. What would you make like what would you if you had to create like a new genre that was like based on like as if you were building this new genre for people to follow,
Okay.
what would you call it?
Oh, God, I call it. That's the hardest part because
Yeah.
you can say what the genre is, but naming it is a whole other
Yeah.
thing.
It's the fun
Um,
part of the question.
yeah, I would call it. Oh my God. Insomnia core. That's what I'd call it.
Interesting.
That's
Why?
probably already a thing. I mean, I think a lot of the music I make, I kind of want it to be like you could listen to it while you're driving at night. And then I was thinking of branding that's dark, and I thought of insomnia cookies.
Mm.
So there you go. Yeah,
That
come
works. That works.
yeah.
Um, where does cold brew, the name, come from? Like,
It,
why is that
it's so much less interesting than you might think it is. I like literally before hopping on here, I was just drinking a cold brew. That's all it is. I just
just
got
big cold brew guy?
yeah, well, actually not recently. I'll get if you want to get into the whole cold brew debate, I will. But when I got to New York, I had just started drinking coffee. I was like 18. I was like, I'm gonna do this, and it's gonna be so cool. And I'm gonna be a New York guy walking on the street with my iced coffee. And I just did do that. And cold brew was like just kind of starting to take off. I like people don't remember a time before cold brew, right?
I think I recall when it was like first a trendy thing
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
drinking.
And I just was just like, okay, I'm just gonna drink a bunch of those. And then I had some truly, truly terrible working names for this project. I don't even know if I remember all of them, but they were like so, so bad. And I was like, cold brew. I was like, that works. It works. Let's use it.
Sure.
It's short, it's to the point. And yeah, that's kind of how it stuck around. But recently I've been getting iced Americanos recently
Oh,
because I feel like every cold brew is starting to taste the same, like kind of acidic and watery. So I've been doing a test. If I like the coffee shop, I will go and I'll ask for an iced coffee, not a cold brew, because the flavors are more coffee like centric.
I love a nice coffee.
Yeah, and everywhere gives me a cold brew. I swear to God.
Really?
I've been to maybe a handful of places where they have distinguishing items on the menu between the two. So, yeah, that's my cold brew journey.
Interesting. Huh. Um, is there a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist?
As an artist, I would say honestly probably the best embodiment of who I am as an artist is my song Made It from Hangover.
Out the window of a fucking A4, more bodies on the street than there were before. It's so funny, I just want more money. I can't apply for a job this week or this month or maybe this year ever. Feeling fucked by this sunny weather, cause now I'll stay inside forever. Feeling like a ghost. My mind flies from coast to coast.
Not because I think it's necessarily my best or what I think represents me as a person necessarily, but you musically, it's kind of very emo centric. It's upbeat, but you've still got some of those techie elements in there. And I kind of swing between those two worlds of electronic and rock music. And I think that one's like right in the middle. So I'd probably say Made It.
Okay. Do you think that's an accurate kind of representation of what's kind of to come? Like, are we on that same trajectory?
Yeah, leaning heavier into the rock trajectory, but on the Made It wave, less on like um less on the more like emo trap wave, which if you listen to the last album, that's really heavy on what it is, you know. But definitely taking that ambience and moving into like guitars that sound like they could have come from Bring Me the Horizon, but also like playing happy stuff sometimes, you know. That it's hard to explain, but I think it's gonna be good. Trust me. Trust me, guys. But then again, I'm too close to the product. Who knows? I'll have to ask my buddies.
If you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would you choose?
I would give you totally different answers like at totally different times. I would say what's gonna come is gonna be like I'm a huge Jimmy Eat World fan, but like not the middle, you know?
I
Like
like the middle.
it's a good song. Nothing
It's
against
a
the
good
middle.
song.
But as you go deeper, they get more melancholy and just like darker, more
Mm,
ambient. So like their album before that album, Clarity, is like one of my favorite albums of all time. Very melancholy melodies. The album afterwards has more ambience to it, darker guitars. I would say it's probably a mix of Jimmy Eat World. I don't know, like I'd have to say just for the drums sometimes and the ambience, I'd say like a Little Peep, you know. There he is. And and a little bit of like tasteful witch house, like dark electronic. So like Salem. I would probably give those three stronger on the Jimmy Eat World. That's the
okay.
strongest. You're adding a dash of the other ones in there.
Okay. It's an interesting conglomerate.
Yeah, yeah. There's no consistency whatsoever. It works sometimes.
What is an outside passion of yours that you feel impacts who you are as an artist?
Oh, I have so many weird like interests that I'm like way too into. Um, I really like history a lot. And I get the fear of like usually when a white guy says he's really into history, it doesn't end well. But I swear, I'm just like super into history and learning, um, just how things have worked in the past. I'm also really into video games just because that's a great way to turn my brain off or keep it on depending on the game. But that affects my work the most, I would say it is uh, it's probably history because I can there have been times in my songs where I've been able to like use words to describe events in the past and just like find new ways of saying things. And if you just like read about history, you will find things that people have said that's like, wow, I would have never thought of describing an event like this. And just not even like amplifying vocabulary because I think it's super important to write a song like the way you talk or
Hmm.
like the way you say it, but just finding out new metaphors, finding out new like single words here and there. So that's probably the one that impacts the most. But in terms of my hobbies, I pretty much am like this is what I do when I don't want to work on music, you know. But it all seeps in somehow.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where everything you consume kind of contributes to what you create, no matter what kind of form that necessarily is.
Yeah.
Um, everything is going to have its influence, everything's going to have its place. It's interesting kind of how that manifests because it's like, there's so many people making music today and we're not all the same composite of like the same environment. So it's interesting to see kind of like, because you can kind of, whether it's directly music related or not, sometimes kind of take that perspective and be like, this may like tying history, for example, to your stuff makes sense. You know what I mean? Like one of those kinds of weird connection sort of things.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like explicitly in the songs, but for some reason that's just what I thought of, and like that's the thing I could tie the most to, or film, you know. And everybody watches different movies, everybody reads different history too, everybody just does different things to take their mind off of their work or their music, and it all seeps in differently. um and yeah, it's kind of crazy. Just everybody I know here who went to the same fucking school, lives in the same fucking neighborhood, and makes the same sounding type of fucking music. It's all kind of different just
Mhm.
because of what they consume. Like you could put two different people in a room, they make the exact same song. There's gonna be like one word that's off, and it's because one person watched one movie and this person like read a book about, I don't know, whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's more of one of those things that's like an after effect in the sense of like, oh, like I've heard this music and then I learned more about this person and it's like these are things that like they do or are interested in or like, things about them. And then it's like that just kind of adds to the character and it makes sense. It's not one of those things where it's like listening to one of your songs and be like, this guy's a history buff. Like, no, that's just not going to happen. That'd be cool.
I bet he
but
has
like,
thoughts on Latin America in the 1960s.
yeah. Yeah, like that's not how it works. It's more of the like retroactive, like reactive kind of idea.
Totally. And that's the most fun to do with like artists you're like a fan of, when you like read an interview with them or whatever, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm really into Twin Peaks." I'm like, "Yeah, no fucking duh. Now I get it." That's the most obvious one. If people are into Twin Peaks, I'm like, "Yeah, I get it. You're weird. I can tell." Of that show, I couldn't finish it. I think it was I need to like get myself ready to like sit down 1 month and just watch all of it.
I've never seen it.
I would recommend it. Doesn't mean I like it, but I would recommend it.
It's like country music.
No, but this one's like actually like like it's well regarded entirely. I haven't had the stomach to sit through the whole thing yet, just because it is so 90s and so like eccentric. But if someone likes Wes Anderson and they like watch a Halloween movie once a month, they should watch Twin Peaks. That's my opinion.
Do you have anything else to put in that bucket of I recommend this, but I don't partake in it personally with country music and Twin Peaks? Is there anything else in that bucket?
Oh, what? I mean, yeah, I think like, oh my God, I'm trying to think. I think weed can do a lot of good for a lot of people, but I don't partake, so I think people should enjoy that. Just because I'm just my body rejects it like a virus. So, but that's a whole different story. I think, what else? I think if you get the chance to try sea urchin, you should. I don't know if I could do it. That's it just like looks so crazy. So I think anybody who gets the chance should try it. I don't know if I would take my own advice though.
Fair enough.
The rest I try to follow.
Okay. What is the ideal listening scenario for someone to consume your music in? I know you kind of alluded to this already, but
yeah, like a nice night drive is always a good vibe. Or honestly, like coming to a show, because I think my music by itself is so, by nature of being a solo artist, it's so me and about my issues. But like coming to a show, it becomes so much more of a communal experience, and like I don't think anyone even gives a fuck about the lyrics when I'm playing it live. It's just like my friends there singing along to the words, and we're having a good time, drinking, like whatever. It's just always more fun, I think. So my shows are probably the best way to consume my music, because if you want to pay attention, you can, but if you don't, we can just have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been to shows where I'm like, these people are better recorded.
Mm-hmm.
I've also been to shows where I'm like, these people were better live. Like I saw the opening act for this one artist that I went to go see in Grand Rapids, and it wasn't a very big show to begin with. So it was opening act. And I was like, listening to the band, and I was like, these guys are dope. And so my boyfriend and I put them on our drive back to school, and we were like, are these the same guys? I was like,
what genre was this?
It was a very like
band, I'm thinking
indie pop kind of vibe.
Okay.
It was like a indie pop rock kind of vibe. It wasn't anything like out there. But it was just like, I was like, there's just so much more energy, and they're just better live. I don't know what it is, but they were just better live.
Yeah, I feel that whole time with like emo bands, like big time, like fourth wave, like newer stuff. I see them live and I'm like, this is so sick. And I listen to their album, I'm like, this is so boring now. What do I do? So yeah, I totally get it. And I wouldn't even say I'm like better live. I don't know if the music is better live. I just think it's like, in terms of an experience that I would want to have, I think it would probably be my favorite, because I'm always just thinking about my shows and like my friends and just having a fun time, whether or not the performance is better or whether or not the music sounds better, I could give a fuck. If you're having a good time, that's all that matters,
That's true. What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
That's a good question, because to be honest, I don't know if there's anything significant about it. Maybe the combination of influences and the fact that every release I do sounds different. But, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like every one of us is just doing what makes the most sense to us. And at our core, we're all the same. We're all just people wanting to make art. Um, and we just throw a bunch of stuff into a cauldron, put it on simmer, and see if it works. So I guess the core difference would be the stuff I put in my cauldron. That would probably be it.
That, different influence and, just like we are talking about with the other outside impact things.
Yeah, Shenmue.
Yeah, I mean, I like asking the question because I'm always interested to see what people say, but it is one of those things where it's just like, it can simply be put just as a different perspective because no one's living your experience but you.
Yeah, I guess the best thing I can say is that I am the only artist. I'm the only project comprised of Ian Traphagen, of me.
Yeah.
That's the most I can say, because I could say I could say a whole bunch of stuff like, well, I take care into doing this, but everybody does. I've met very few musicians that don't care, and we're all just trying to do our best.
That's all we really can do.
Yeah, true.
The best is all that there is really to do.
Yeah, and it's a shame that sometimes the best is not enough for musicians to not even succeed, just like pay their bills with what they're doing. It's not, music is not a meritocracy, just like any other job is not a meritocracy. At least in the system we live in now. So, not to get all we live in a society on you, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the blessing and the curse with the whole independent thing is, it's like, oh, you have all this creative control, you can do whatever you want. There is nobody telling you when you have to put anything out, what you have to put out, how much you have to write, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, that person that is then filling that role is you. You are making your own deadlines. You are creating your own schedule. You are having to do these 10 other roles that, like, at a label scenario, people would be like on your team doing for you. I like having the control over all of it, but then it comes to the point where it's just like, I have to also be doing these other things that I have yet to do. And only recently realized that I have to do, like it baffles me the amount of people that aren't registered, like all the places they should be registered for royalties and stuff. And social media is a thing now, which I enjoy, but most people don't. It's,
I don't mind it as a user, if I'm going on social media, I know, like, I wasn't like an iPad kid. We were like the generation that like maybe got it when we were like 12 or 13.
yeah,
I was able to like kind of, as a user of social media who consumes, big fan. I think it's great. I think it can get pretty terrible, but just like be smart. As somebody who has to put stuff out on social media, I can't stand it.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, and I know it's usually the opposite. Everyone's like, Instagram is rotting your brain, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. So is everything else you're watching. I don't care.
That's
but I
true.
don't want to have to watch my metrics every day. That's rotting my brain. I have a job, dude. I can't do this shit,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my view on social media. But it's a good tool if you know how to use it. I just don't know how to fucking use it.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing sometimes, and it's anymore it's you're putting a lot kind of into the void and just seeing what sticks, which is the tricky part, because you just kind of, that's ultimately what you have to do, is you just have to throw things out there, and over time things will happen, but you're not seeing that instant gratification, so it's kind of deterring in its initial stages.
Yeah, and I'm such an instant gratification brain. It's really bad. Like so bad. I definitely got to go to therapy. But anyways, yes, I agree. And it's hard, especially doing that as like at this point, like full transparency, like I don't pay anything with music, you know? I make like negligible money at this point. I have to have a job,
Mhm.
right? And then I'm expected to do this full-time job, more or less,
Mhm.
for no money until God knows when, you know? And yeah, I don't know. It's like it feels like because of all the big money in music, it's just super super hard for anyone to get a foothold in. And like honestly, I'm not asking to be big. I don't care. It would just be great if I could pay my bills on this. You know, that'd be
Mhm.
awesome. Like one day, like if I could one day live in a house that music paid for in wherever, choose the shittiest city in the world. I don't care. If I could get to that point, that's like that's awesome. That's a success for me. Uh, and it's just so hard for independent musicians to do that, no matter how talented they are, you know. And I know so many that are so much more talented than me and are equally struggling through all this because it's pretty scary.
Yeah, that's ultimately why I started doing this and started doing the work that I do with artists and social media. Is it's just like when I started doing like the artist thing on TikTok, I was like, mean, I was seeing nothing but independent artists on my feed, and I'm like looking at all these people, and I'm like, okay, first of all, their shit is so much better than mine, so that's fun. But also like, what? Why is no one seeing this? Why is no one hearing this? Like, what is this music not doing on
Yeah.
something? You know what I mean? Like, it's just there's so much good shit out there, but it's just like people don't know how to put it out there in the right ways, or don't have the time to do it all for themselves, which
Yeah,
is the
absolutely.
downside. Things are changing. Things are definitely changing in the direction of independence, are kind of on the rise, but at the same time it's still very daunting.
Well, like you said, everything there's two sides to every coin, like you said earlier, and I like since the beginning of this century, the democratization of music is an amazing thing. You get kids who never would have gotten the deal,
Mm-hmm.
like making millions of dollars. They're getting so rich, and they are like kids who didn't grow up with a lot of money, didn't take music classes. They're just making awesome shit, and it like worked out for them. But at the same time, since everybody got those tools now, which I think is a
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally good thing, it means there's way more of us, like
Yeah,
way more
it's
of
very
us than I think
saturated.
I think there are way more of us than there is space, and that's just a fact of it. And even though that's the case, I still think it's a good thing that there
Mm-hmm.
are more of us. Um, the more music, the better. If it if I don't get to live my life off of music, I'll be fine. I'll live, you know. I'll keep doing it when I can, and that's like it's just a fact of life, you know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it has made it a lot easier for people to just create, which is great. But that means then also, like you said, everybody's creating. So I think honestly, I think over time it might, I think it'll like new people will still continue, but also I think at some point those people will fall off because some people just don't, I don't think everybody has their heart in it as much as required if you really want to like make this
Yeah.
happen, in the sense of like it can be something that you just do for shits and giggles, but like at the same time it's like it's a whole beast if you want it to go well.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I ask myself literally every day is like, do I really want to sit here and do this shit right now? Like, no matter how much I love making music, no matter how much I love the creative process, because that's really all I care about.
Hmm.
Like, do I really want to sit here and do this shit? And so far, it's been yes every time I ask it. But you know, it's hard. It's hard to keep motivating yourself like that. It's I I talk with my mom about this all the time because she's the number one Cold Brew fan, 100%. She knows arguably too much about my music. Um, and her favorite project I did is the 5 song like Witch House ambient EP I did that like is so out of left field. So my mom's the goat. But she'll talk to me. She's like, "You didn't market this song enough. Like you could have done this, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I just couldn't bring myself to do it." And
that it's hard because that's the only way that this is gonna work.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to get over for this next thing. Let's hope I market the next album well. I can't guarantee I will.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. I didn't start marketing any of my music until this year. And
Okay, so I'm not too behind.
no. But I have also not reaped any results as a result of not doing anything. So, the shit I'm doing now is just too good to ignore, too good to just like let it sit, you know? So that's my kind of perspective on it, is like, think about it in the way of, if you put that much time and in some cases money into that piece of work, you owe it to yourself to put that same amount of time and effort into the back end to get it the results that it deserves and the results that you desire
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
promoting it and
that is the
stuff, you
truth.
know. It's easier said than done, but
Maybe
that's the
Maybe
mindset.
that's the last piece of advice that I don't follow yet. Maybe that's the last one. Is really know how to market your shit, and I still need to learn. Not that I won't, but I need to. You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, what impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
I guess there's two levels to this, which is the kind of noble one of like, I want to play music for people and make them like have a good time, you know. I want to have a good time myself. I want other people to have a good time listening to or my music or like being at a show. That's the noble side of it. I think the sort of selfish and egotistical side of it is like, I don't need to be a big artist or a huge artist. I kind of want to be like somebody's favorite artist's favorite artist. That's like my like totally vain goal. If I can get to there, I am so good. I can stop. You know. And also, yeah, if I'm able to, like, I don't know, I want to have some sort of impact coming from DC as well, because it's a city that like has a beautiful scene right now when it comes to like indie and emo music, and it's great, but it's really hard for them over there. There's not a lot of opportunities. Venues that are small enough to host shows keep shutting down. Because if you think New York has not a lot of space for small venues, DC is so much smaller, and like half of it is taken up by the fucking federal government. So, you know, it's really tough. People are playing out of VFW halls, which is great for community, not great for making a living. And yeah, I want to be able to. It would be great if I could show that like a DC artist can do something all right, you know, and if we get a local artist playing the 930 Club, I don't care if it's me, if it's somebody else. I just want to be on that bill because that would be a beautiful thing.
You know, you're the second person that I've had on here from DC, and both of you are it's just, I don't know what it is about DC, but both of y'all are like prideful about that shit.
Yeah, of course. Who was it? I want to know.
His artist name is Plant Dad.
I'm gonna write that down. I gotta reach out to them.
I just had him.
To this
I had him on a few weeks ago.
Okay.
He's
Plant
a big
Dad.
DC, Baltimore also area. I know those are like, I think those are close to each other. I've been to DC once, so
Semi. Culturally pretty different, but the scenes kind of do overlap a little bit.
okay. He's
like
Baltimore or DC.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in there, somewhere in Marylandish, you know.
Yeah,
But I think
feel
we definitely talked about DC. So, but yeah, just very like
Yeah.
it was the first one that I've really had on here that was like very like, I want to like stay here and do this thing in like the city, and I'm just like, interesting. Like usually your people are like I'm talking to people from LA and Nashville, and like they came from wherever, but it's like DC, it's the pride.
Yeah, no, and listen, I'm still in New York. I'm living in New York for however long New York will have me, you know. but I have like, but I'm not one of those. I try not to be one of those transplants that shits on where they came from.
One, because I think where you came from is such an important part of you. Like there's all those memories you carry with you, all those experiences that make you who you are. It might not even have to do with the place itself, but like, that's an important time in your life, And also, like, I don't know, it's cute. I like DC. It's so tiny and like nice. And it's funny too. Crazy shit happens down there. I love it. So, and also some of the best bands have come out of there. Like fucking Henry Rollins, frontman for Black Flag. Dave Grohl came out of Arlington, Virginia, right outside of DC. Like we have a long storied but not oft talked about place in music that I think deserves more attention.
Interesting. I'll have to keep my eye on DC.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'll give you some good artists to reach out to also from DC because they're also all so nice. Like I've never had a bad experience with an artist in DC. I've 100% had a bad experience with an artist in New York,
Well, that's New York.
Yeah, I know.
They're breeding them to be brutal out there.
Bro, nobody's from here. That's the thing.
That's fair.
Everybody's like me.
I think that brings us to the last question, which is ultimately the concept behind the podcast, which is why music?
I have actually been asked that a lot throughout my life, and I've given various answers throughout my life. When I've had moments where like it's been kind of hard going through school for music and just like I've been going through a tough time, and the answer I would give is because it's all I'm fucking good at, which is not true. But there is an element of that is not so terrible that is true, which is like, everybody loves doing what they're good at, and I hope they're good at what they love doing. That's the goal. I think I'm good at what I love doing. And I love doing what I'm good at. So, I just have the most fun doing music, and I love doing other things. I will go see a movie. I don't know, play video games for hours on end, whatever any hobby is. But like when I am able to see the creative process of a song through to the end, like I'm starting it, and while I'm doing it, it's so hard. Like, especially recently, as it's been hard adjusting to adulthood and like out of college and things get tough out there. It's really hard while I'm doing something. But once I like finish it off and I'm able to like listen to something on my phone while I'm like walking to the subway to work, that's when I get like the high from it all. When I'm able to fully see the picture of what I've been making this whole time. That's when I get like the most joy out of creating. And that's probably why music, because I can't make movies.
No, I mean, it, like you said before, music has just a different kind of neurological, whatever, however you want to articulate it. Like, it's just, it has this effect on people that is inexplainable. And so being able to be in a position where you can contribute to that and create, it's just too crazy not to do. You know what I mean? It's just too crazy of a ability to have to not take advantage of it.
No, absolutely. And I think that is kind of what my mom and what my dad were telling me in high school. Like, they're like, we've seen you drum, you're good at this. Like, why don't you just do it? Come on. And I'm glad they did that. I really like, I'm so thankful to my parents for like so much of my life. They've given me so many opportunities and just always been there. And the music school thing is like one of the biggest things they've ever done for me. Just telling me that it's okay if I want to do that, because I was gonna fucking go for English,
Not history.
which is cool. No, the history thing only came after music school when I was like, yeah, I wish I like could write like a paper. Which is a crazy thing to say. But I was like missing a little bit of the like hyper academic for like one time. I was floating the idea. I was like, what if I got a master's in history? Who knows? Maybe. I might get a master's. That could be fun. If I got a master's, I wouldn't do it for music. That's all I'm saying. I've done the degree. I don't need another one. But anyways, yeah, I am so thankful that they told me it's okay to go to music school, and they told me it's okay to want to do this, because so many kids do not get that opportunity, and I know how lucky I am. So thanks, guys. If they're watching.
Yeah, I mean it is.
My mom's gonna
Like-
call me Sabbath now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing to be a part of. It's a crazy opportunity to have in front of you, and it's even crazier once you start doing it and you're like, wait, like this is like real. Like my like stuff I actually like put time and energy into is like on Spotify.
A real thing. Yeah.
Like it's like things, it's some, and then like other people can listen to it. Like people can find it, and it just exists. It's crazy, but it's awesome just as much.
No, absolutely. I'm happy I get to be a part of it for as long as I do. If we're closing out, I would like to offer one last piece of advice to any listeners listening.
Hit it.
You know, I'm sure we're full of indie musicians listening to this, DIY musicians. Guys, when you're using DistroKid, please put something in the label field, because if you don't, they will put a bunch of numbers and records DK, and I've seen it too many times. It looks like shit. Do better. That's it. Just put whatever you want in there. You can make something up. Just it's better than what they give you. Please, please, please.
Even if it's just your artist name, throw it there.
Yeah, because they're not going to do it for you. Just put your artist name in there. Records DK257. No, stop it. Stop it. What are you, an android? Do better. Sorry. That's my last piece of advice. And that one I follow. That one I live by.
Yeah, that one you have to. You just have to. Plus, it's like it's cool to have your own little like entity, whether that thing actually exists or not. Who cares? But it's just your own little creative thing. You know.
So take the opportunity. It takes 2 seconds. Think about it, guys. Think about it. That's what
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. Check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.